Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Welcome to another exciting Van Halen related guitar project. In this video, I'm going to show you how I took this very inexpensive Strat style guitar and converted it into this awesome replica of Eddie's 1978 black and white Frankenstrat, all for just a few $100, so it's a very budget friendly build. Now throughout the video, you're going to hear this guitar used in a couple of tracks that I made, and so you're going to hear it in a mix, and then at the very end for the big reveal, you're also going to hear it stripped down in sort of an isolated track setting. So for the tones, I'm using some presets that I picked up from 3 Sigma Audio called the Van H7884 collection, and I'm using their presets as well as their impulse responses in my Line 6 Helix. So I appreciate you stopping by and watching the video. I understand this is a little bit longer format than usual for me, but I tried to cram everything into one video this time and not make it a series, so there's a lot of detail here to cover. So if you have any questions or comments, drop them below. I appreciate you watching. Let's get started. All right, so the platform for this build is the Fender Starcaster. This was a guitar sold in retail box stores, you know, for around $150 or so. It's basically your entry-level guitar. It's got some nice features though, and what makes this really ideal is it's got a full thickness body of 1 3/4 inch depth. Some of the cheaper like Affinity Squire brand guitars are only like 1.5 inches. So what you run into are problems when you upgrade the tremolo with a larger block. They protrude through the back. So this is an ideal platform. So you can see the neck here has got some really nice grain. It's just an overall pretty decent quality guitar for the money. So you can find those online for, you know, $75, $100, Facebook Marketplace, things like that. So I got it all stripped apart and I sanded it down to about a 320 grit, just left the stock finish on, no reason to take it down to the wood for this. And there it is in the paint booth, in the paint jig. So I went ahead and did some, a couple of coats of primer. And then now you're looking at the first big issue I ran into, where the depth of the stock pickup floor was around 900 thousandths below the top deck, which means it was about 300 thousandths lower than a traditional Strat body would be routed. So in the event that you're going to put a long leg humbucker mounted directly to the body, well, the floor would be way too low. So to remedy that, I kind of skimmed some of the surface off and then built a plug basically to fit that gap to raise that floor back up to the 600 thousandths height that a normal Strat body would be located. So once I got the plug glued in, you saw it clamped there. Once I got it glued in with some tight bond and clamped down, of course that's not going anywhere. I needed to adjust the height of that floor just a little bit closer than what it fit originally. So I skimmed off the surface there, making it right at 600 thousandths below the top surface. Now that was needed to make sure that our long leg humbucker would mount right to it. So we're using a duplicolor lacquer, just a black duplicolor lacquer. You can get it at auto parts stores. So I went ahead and took the body there and dry sanded it to a 400 grit, went over it there with a tack cloth just to make sure everything was, you know, nice and clean and the surface was prepped properly. So again, we just have a primered layer over the stock paint. Now I went ahead and added one of those like $3 or $4 trigger mechanisms. I think that was the first time I'd ever used one of those, and if you've ever painted one of these kind of Van Halen stripe bodies or done a lot of work with a rattle can, you know like how much fatigue you get in your hand and your trigger finger or your thumb from squeezing that thing. I think the trigger really actually helped in a lot of areas besides just the fatigue. It actually helped, I think, with the flow. It helped the paint flow out a little easier. It was a little easier to control. So here it is after one coat. I actually emptied the can on this body, so there's 2 more coats sprayed off camera, but that first coat laid really nice. So did the second and third coat. So it's all taped up here. I'm using a 3M brand auto shop tape, and it is 3/4 inch wide. Just found the templates online and just kind of studied all angles of it there, but the tape went on pretty easily. I had no issues when I peeled the tape. It had a kind of a decent amount of tack without having too much, and of course with the proper prep then your paint doesn't peel off. So this is a sample board. I went ahead and sprayed to test out the white. I was kind of going back and forth between a Wimbledon white and an Olympic white, which is not the same as Fender's Olympic white. It's actually a GM color. So that was the ultimate choice, was the Olympic white by Duplicolor, and it just had an off-white variation that made it look perfect for what we were trying to do here. So again, using the trigger there was just a lot easier to control the flow of the paint. And this took about 3 coats as well. I think I emptied the can, or I should say 3 coats is what you can get out of a can. So if you intend to do more than 3 coats, then you'll want to get more than 1 can. But I felt that one can gave ample coverage and did a really good job covering the black. So obviously that's just after 1 coat, and the other 2 coats were applied off camera. All right, so this is like the best time if you're a Van Halen guitar builder or interested in doing these. This is when all of your hard work kind of pays off, because you get to see how well the stripe pattern turned out. I was really happy with the 3M tape. I didn't have a whole lot of issues with chatter down the stripe lines. The tape peeled off really nice and clean. It didn't lift up any of the black base with it, so I had real good paint adhesion. So all of that is just a product or a result of your prep work. If you prep it right, you shouldn't have any issues. All right, in this clip, you're also seeing the body before it was wet sanded. So this is basically as it was sprayed. You can see there's a little bit of orange peel on the surface there. Later on in the video, I didn't capture this on camera, but you'll see how the paint actually buffs out really nice and clean. So with a 1500 grit piece of sandpaper, you can wet sand the black and the white together. You'll get a little bit of black bleeding out, but it does not stick to anything. It just wipes right off, and it polishes up really nice. So I got the pick guard here, and just traced out the line where it's supposed to go for the humbucker, and now we're disassembling the neck, getting ready to strip all of the stock finish off of it, or as much as we can get off of it. Get rid of the cheap hardware and the tuners and the nut. We're going to put a brass nut on it. I'm going to actually level and crown the frets because it was not very good. That was probably one of the weak spots of this Starcaster. So all the neck work has been completed. You've seen the finish getting sanded off. That took quite a while, actually. That compressed video was about an hour, hour and a half worth of work there, getting all of that factory finish and logo off. Of course, probably could have sped it up a little bit with a DA sander, but just chose to do it by hand. Got all the finish off in between the frets, and now I'm going to start applying the Birchwood Casey Tru-Oil, which is a good sealer, and it kind of adds a little bit of a slight amber tone to it as well. I don't like to build up a lot of coats. I just like to go for one or two just to kind of seal it, and then I'll go back with steel wool and rub it down again to get it real smooth before applying a couple layers of the Birchwood Casey gunstock wax. And what that's doing is kind of making it feel like an old school Charvel neck. Prior to that, I've sanded it up to about a 600 grit sandpaper just to get all the imperfections out, working my way up from about a 300 to a 400 and then jumping up to a 600. So you end up with a really nice smooth finish. So now we're going to put on some conductive paint here just for shielding. You'll notice the two shims in the humbucker cavity there, and what ended up happening was the pickup that I chose came from the seller. It was an online store, eBay store, and it was already on a set of short leg. It was a short leg base humbucker. So that kind of nullified putting the floor in, although I think it still needed that support in there because it was a pretty thin floor to begin with. So I put the shims in there just to raise up the height of the humbucker to the correct level, since I did not switch to a long leg base. It just seemed to make more sense to shim the legs up a little higher than it did to actually disassemble a complete humbucker and put an entirely different base on it. So that's why you're seeing those in that shot there. All right, so we're working our way here through the final assembly. You can see I've got the tuners coming on. Those are Godot tuners. I like those because they're affordable and they're very good quality. I also chose them because the screw holes on those tabs are in the same position as the factory tuners, so didn't have to make any modifications there to install those, which was nice. You can see in this angle the glare of the paint. So the paint's been fully buffed at this stage. Again, that was with a 1500 grit sandpaper. Just wet sanding over the entire body and then going back over it with a Porter Cable auto polisher and an orange pad. I think I was using the Meguiar's Ultimate Compound. That was all done before the black pinstripe tapes. The pinstripe was done after the fact, and that was actually Scotch Call from 3M tape. I'm putting in the Fender Mexican Standard upgrade. That's the large mass, the big block upgraded standard tremolo there. Those have the same hole patterns for these import guitars, import Fender guitars, and overall, they're just a really good quality bridge there for the money. I think they're normally around $25-30. So one other modification I made, though, that's not really here on camera. You can see the little bag off to the corner. And I'm putting on a 500K pot as well. But I purchased these saddle adjustment screws from Diablo Tuning. And I think the store is actually called Monster Bolts on eBay. And for like $5, you get this perfectly set of staggered adjustment screws for those saddles. And what that does is it helps you get the saddle screw as close to flush or right below the surface of the saddle, so you don't have that exposed top of the screw kind of digging into your right hand as you're playing palm muting and whatnot. So if you don't like that feeling on a Strat, then I would highly recommend checking those out from Diablo Tuning from eBay. I think they're an 8mm like a 4 and a 6mm staggered set. You put the tallest ones on your D and G strings, but very high quality there. I did use the original chrome, the football jack cover there. Had to bore out the hole a little bit though, since it was sized for an import jack, and I put a Switchcraft jack in there, so it needed that standard 3/8 size hole. There's the pickup there. It was $20 on eBay. Again, it was just a nice, fit for what I was going for here. Kind of just capturing the vibe of this whole low budget build, and trying to understand a little bit about what Eddie used originally. It came from an old Gibson. It was a PAF style pickup, very low output style pickup, and that's what this is. It's an Alnico 2 with an 8.2K ohm resistance, and I think it kind of matched exactly what I was looking for here. It kind of nailed the tone, as you've heard so far in these recorded tracks, and just really suited the build well. I was very happy with it, and the quality is really outstanding. I really like these real simple single humbucker type builds. You've only got a hot and a ground coming in from the input jack straight to the pot, and then the pot straight over to the pickup, so it's super easy, nothing real confusing about it. And that's always a good sign when you get some signal through your pickup. That means everything's hooked up right and ready to rock.